They say bruises are just motivation. I say they're evidence. The day he shoved me off the porch after another one of his toughening sessions, I thought I'd give up, until my drill sergeant picked up the phone, hit speaker, and made him listen to his own voice trembling. Calvin Rusk thought he was building a soldier. Staff Sergeant Briggs showed him he was just another abuser about to meet military precision. The handcuffs clicked at Family Day while the whole base watched. My name is Sierra Whitaker, and at 5:30 a.m. in Riverton, Colorado, I was running stairs with 40 pounds of sand strapped to my back while my stepfather screamed that I was too weak for the military. The homemade weight vest Calvin had constructed from canvas and duct tape cut into my shoulders with every step. Sweat burned my eyes, dripped off my chin onto the concrete steps behind our split-level house. My thighs screamed as I pushed up for the 20th rep, lungs fighting for oxygen in the thin mountain air. Faster, Sierra. You think drill sergeant's gonna wait while you catch your breath? Calvin's voice boomed from the deck above. Former high school football coach, built like a linebacker gone to seed. He'd appointed himself my personal trainer the day I announced I was enlisting in the Army Reserves. This is resistance training, mental toughness. You're soft. My right foot caught the edge of step 15. Time slowed as my knee buckled, the weight on my back pitching me forward. I threw my hands out, but Calvin's boot connected with my shoulder blade first, a motivational push. He'd call it later. The concrete tore through my knee as I went down hard, ribs slamming into the step edge. Pain exploded along my left side. Get up! He was already coming down the stairs, each footfall making the structure shake. You think the enemy's gonna care if you're tired. Think ISIS gives a damn about your feelings. I pushed myself up, tasting copper in my mouth. Blood seeped through my torn sweatpants. My ribs protested every breath, but I stood, swaying slightly. Through the kitchen window, I caught a glimpse of my mother Elaine watching through the curtains. When our eyes met, she turned away. Tomorrow we do this again, Calvin said, his face inches from mine. I could smell the coffee and cigarettes on his breath. But with 50 pounds, you're shipping out in 3 weeks, and I'll be damned if my stepdaughter washes out of basic training. That evening, after icing my ribs in my locked bedroom, my phone buzzed with his text. 8 p.m. Tonight, tire flips in the garage. Don't make me come get you. I stared at the message, then at the acceptance letter from the Army tucked into my dresser mirror. 12 more days until I reported to Camp Silver Butte in Wyoming. 12 more days of Calvin's training. I'd hidden the bruises from the military entrance processing station doctors, terrified they'd disqualify me. This was my only way out my path to freedom, to becoming something more than Calvin Rusk's punching bag disguised as tough love. Another text came through. You missed tonight's session. You might as well not go at all. I don't raise quitters. My ribs throbbed as I typed back, I'll be there. The lie came easily. I'd gotten good at them. I slipped during a run. I'm just clumsy. Cal's just trying to help. But as I touched the growing bruise spreading across my ribs, dark purple blooming under my fingertips, I wondered how many more lies my body could tell before someone finally asked the right questions. Outside my window, I heard Calvin's truck start up, probably heading to his Iron Valor Youth Gym, where he charged desperate parents $200 a month to fix their troubled teens with the same methods he used on me. Nobody questioned a former coach's discipline. Nobody wondered why his stepkid was covered in bruises but never missed a day of work at Northline Apex Logistics, where I loaded trucks and saved every penny for a future that didn't include him. 12 more days. I just had to survive 12 more days. The bus to Camp Silver Butte smelled like diesel and nervous sweat. 43 recruits crammed into vinyl seats, most of them fresh out of high school, their faces still soft with youth. At 27, I was ancient by comparison. My ribs ached with every pothole on Interstate 25, the bruising now a spectacular purple-green that spread from my armpit to my hip. First time. The woman next to me extended her hand. Latina, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jade Morales, Denver. Sierra Whitaker, Riverton. I shook her hand carefully, trying not to wince. You okay? You're holding yourself weird. Just nervous. I lied, adjusting my position against the window. The gates of Camp Silver Butte appeared through morning fog, barbed wire and concrete announcing the end of civilian life. My phone had 17 missed calls from Calvin, each voicemail more threatening than the last. I deleted them all as we pulled into the reception area. Off the bus, move, move, move. Staff Sergeant Naomi Briggs stood 5'8" in boots, but her presence filled the entire parking lot. Dark skin, close-cropped hair, eyes that could strip paint off a wall. She watched each of us stumble off the bus, cataloging weaknesses like a predator studying prey. Form up 4 ranks if you don't know what that means. Figure it out. We scrambled into something resembling formation. Briggs walked the line, stopping occasionally to adjust someone's stance. When she reached me, her eyes lingered on how I held my left arm slightly away from my body. Name, she barked. Whitaker, Sierra, Staff Sergeant. You injured, Whitaker. No, Staff Sergeant. Her eyes narrowed. Medical inspection. All females. Follow Specialist Torres. Males with Specialist Murphy. Move. The medical bay was cold fluorescent efficiency. When my turn came to lift my shirt for the basic health screening, the examining medic, a young specialist who looked barely 20, stopped mid-notation. Jesus, what happened to you? Fell during training, I said automatically. Tripped on stairs. She called for a superior, then another. Within minutes, I was in a private examination room with a medical officer and Staff Sergeant Briggs herself. Remove your shirt completely, the medical officer ordered. I complied, standing in my sports bra as they documented every bruise, every cut. The camera clicked repeatedly. Stairs did this. Briggs's voice was neutral, professional. Yes, Staff Sergeant. Stairs grabbed your shoulder and left finger marks. She pointed to the distinct bruising where Calvin had gripped me during yesterday's motivation. Stairs texted you 43 times in the last 6 hours. My phone sat on the examination table where they'd asked me to place my personal items. The screen lit up with another message from Calvin. Answer me now, or I'm coming to get you. Listen carefully, Whitaker, Briggs said, pulling up a chair. I've been doing this 12 years. I've seen every kind of recruit walk through those gates. The ones running to something, the ones running from something. You're both. In my unit. Every assault, whether it happens in here or out there, is my business. You understand? I nodded, throat tight. This is a safety issue that affects military readiness. Whatever happened before you got on that bus, if it follows you here, it becomes my problem. And I handle my problems. She pulled out a notebook. You're going to bunk with Morales. Tonight. After lights out. You're reporting to my office. Bring your phone. We're going to have a conversation about operational security and keeping my soldiers safe from domestic threats. That night, Jade helped me unpack in silence, seeing the careful way I moved, the wine-dark bruise peeking above my collar. My ex did that once, she said quietly, folding her uniforms with precise corners. The trying to control you by calling it help thing, making you think you're weak so you need them. My phone buzzed again. Calvin's latest voicemail played on speaker by accident as I grabbed for it. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything I've done, I'm your emergency contact. They'll call me when you fail. And you will fail without me. That your dad? Jade asked. Stepfather. The word tasted bitter. He thinks he's been preparing me for this. Sounds like he's been preparing you to need him forever. At 2100 hours, I knocked on Staff Sergeant Briggs's door, phone in hand, ribs aching with each breath. Inside, she had my medical file open, my enlistment paperwork spread across her desk. Sit, she ordered. Now, let's talk about what really happened to you and how we're going to make sure he never touches you again. Staff Sergeant Briggs's office smelled like strong coffee and gun oil. She had a recorder on the desk, a legal pad, and a representative from medical sitting in the corner taking notes. The JAG officer on duty, Captain Reynolds, participated via video call on Briggs's laptop. "Before we start," Briggs said, "I need you to understand something. This conversation is being documented for your protection and the Army's. Are you comfortable proceeding?" I nodded, gripping my phone so tight my knuckles went white. "I'm going to call your stepfather," Briggs continued. "On speaker. The medical representative and Captain Reynolds will witness. You don't have to say anything unless you want to." "Understood." "Yes, Staff Sergeant." She pulled out her official phone, its case stamped with military insignia. "What's his number?" I recited it from memory, my stomach churning. The phone rang twice before Calvin's voice filled the room. "Yeah, who's this?" "Mr. Rusk, this is Staff Sergeant Naomi Briggs, United States Army, calling from Camp Silver Butte regarding your stepdaughter, Sierra Whitaker." About damn time someone called me. "Is she washing out already? I knew she was too weak." "Mr. Rusk, I'm calling regarding injuries Private Whitaker sustained prior to reporting for training." "Injuries?" His laugh was harsh. "If you mean that tumble she took on the stairs, that was her own clumsiness. I've been training her for months, making her tough. She needed it soft as butter. That girl. I did what any good father would do." "Can you elaborate on this training?" Briggs's voice remained professionally neutral. "Damn right I can. 430 runs with weight vests I made myself. Tire flips, bear crawls, wall sits until she cried. Sometimes had to give her a push when she wanted to quit, you know. Motivational stuff. Break them down to build them up. Right. That's what you people do anyway." The medical representative's pen scratched furiously across paper. Captain Reynolds leaned forward on the video feed. "And these pushes," Briggs continued. "Can you describe them?" "Hell, sometimes you gotta be hands-on." Grabbed her shoulder when she tried to walk away from training. Pushed her back down when she didn't do push-ups right. Last week, gave her a little shove on the stairs when she was dogging it with the weighted runs. She fell, scraped her knee. Big deal. I did harder to my football players back in the day. "Mr. Rusk, you're stating that you physically pushed your stepdaughter downstairs while she was wearing a weighted vest. It was motivational. I was preparing her for you people. She should be thanking me instead of wait. Did she say something? That ungrateful. Mr. Rusk, I need to inform you that what you've just described constitutes assault and battery. You've admitted to a pattern of physical abuse." Abuse. "Listen here, Sergeant whatever your name is. I invested months making sure she wouldn't embarrass herself or me." "Mr. Rusk," Briggs's voice cut through his rant like a blade. "You've just confessed to multiple instances of assault to a federal officer. This conversation is being recorded. From this moment forward, any contact with Private Whitaker must go through official military channels. Any attempt at direct contact will be considered harassment of military personnel and handled accordingly. You can't. Furthermore, we'll be forwarding this recording to local law enforcement and providing Private Whitaker with resources to pursue a protective order. Is that clear?" "This is bullshit." "I have rights. She's my stepdaughter. She's a United States Army soldier under my command, and you've just admitted to assaulting her. This conversation is over." Briggs ended the call. The silence that followed felt like stepping out of a thunderstorm. "Private Whitaker," Captain Reynolds spoke from the laptop screen. "I'm going to provide you with contact information for a civilian attorney who specializes in protective orders, Alyssa Kerr. She works with military families and can file in Carbon County by tomorrow. The Army will provide transportation to court as needed." The medical representative stood. "I need to update your medical file with documented abuse. This won't affect your training status. You're the victim here." After they left, Briggs pulled out a thick manual. "This is AR 620 Army Command Policy. Chapter 7 covers our SHARP program, Sexual Harassment, Assault Response and Prevention. While your assault happened pre-service, you're now under our protection." She slid a form across the desk. "This is a DD Form 2910. It lets you decide how much you want to report officially. You can file restricted or unrestricted." "What's the difference?" "Restricted keeps it confidential medical care and counseling only. Unrestricted opens an investigation, involves law enforcement. Based on that phone call, I'd recommend unrestricted. We have his confession recorded. My hands shook as I took the form. He'll come here. Calvin doesn't accept being told no. Let him try, Briggs said, her smile sharp as winter ice. This is federal property. If he sets 1 foot past that gate without authorization, he's mine. And trust me, Whitaker, I've dealt with plenty of bullies who thought their civilian status protected them. It doesn't. She handed me a card with multiple phone numbers, my official line, my duty phone, base security, and the civilian attorney. You memorize these numbers tonight. Someone threatens you, calls you, shows up, you contact me immediately. Clear. Yes, Staff Sergeant. Good. Now get back to barracks. 0530 PT formation tomorrow. And Whitaker. She stood, her presence filling the room. You survived him. Basic training's going to feel easy by comparison. The law office of Alyssa Kerr sat in a strip mall in Rawlins, Wyoming, 40 minutes from base. She was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with red hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that had seen too many domestic violence cases. The recording Staff Sergeant Briggs made is gold, she said, replaying Calvin's confession for the 3rd time. Clear admission of assault, but we need more for a solid protective order. Tell me everything. For 2 hours, I built my case piece by piece. The photos on my phone bruises I documented, thinking maybe someday I'd need proof. Screenshots of his text messages. You miss training. You're dead to me. Weak little bitch needs to learn respect. I made you who you are. The doorbell camera footage Jade helped me download from my cloud storage, showing Calvin throwing the weighted sandbag at me when I tried to skip a session, screaming about disrespect. What about your mother? Kerr asked. She won't testify against him. The words hurt, but were true. I called her 2 nights ago. She begged me not to make trouble. Said Calvin just gets intense about things he cares about. Captain Reynolds, participating via secure video link, pulled up financial records. Private Whitaker mentioned something about a youth program he runs, Iron Valor Youth. I said, he charges parents $200 cash per kid, claims he's reforming troubled teens with military-style discipline, keeps the money in a coffee can in the garage. I saw at least $3,000 last month. Kerr's fingers flew across her laptop. No business license registered in Colorado under that name. No tax ID number. He's running an unlicensed, uninsured operation involving minors. She looked up. This changes things. Judge Martinez hates people who exploit kids. The JAG duty officer leaned forward. We can flag this with Colorado Department of Human Services. If he's using the same methods on those kids, he is? I interrupted. I've seen him make a 16-year-old do wall sits until he vomited, called it purging weakness. The next morning at 0600, Kerr filed for a temporary restraining order in Carbon County District Court. By 1400 hours, Judge Martinez had signed it. Calvin was prohibited from any contact, no calls, texts, emails, third-party messages. He couldn't come within 500 feet of me or Camp Silver Butte. This is temporary, Kerr warned as we left the courthouse. Full hearing in 2 weeks. He'll be served papers within 48 hours. Back at base, my squad had formed a protective circle without being asked. Jade always walked with me to the PX. Rodriguez and Thompson flanked me at Chow. Williams, a former cop from Detroit, taught me how to spot surveillance, check for tracking devices, vary my routines. Abusers escalate when they lose control, she said during evening downtime. You took away his power. He's going to try to get it back. She was right. 3 days after being served, Calvin started his campaign. First came the emails to my old address, forwarded by a friend. You're destroying our family. Then messages through my mother. He just wants to apologize. Honey, he's going to counseling. Staff Sergeant Briggs pulled me aside after morning PT. Your stepfather called the base commander's office, said you're mentally unstable, lying about injuries to get special treatment. My stomach dropped. Sir, Relax. Whitaker. Colonel Patterson told him to pound sand. Also said if he calls again, he'll be charged with harassment of military personnel. She handed me a folder. Your attorney sent these. print receipts from something called Iron Valor Youth. No business registration, no insurance, no background checks on a man working with minors. Colorado's opening an investigation. That night, writing in my training journal, I felt something shift. For years, I'd absorbed Calvin's abuse thinking it made me stronger, that enduring it proved something, but surrounded by soldiers who showed strength through support, not domination. I finally understood. Calvin wasn't training me. He was breaking me down to maintain control. "You good?" Jade asked from her bunk. "Yeah," I said, meaning it for the first time in years. "Actually good. Brief said family days in 2 weeks. You inviting anyone?" I thought about my mother, still defending Calvin, still choosing his version of reality over my bruises. "No family, but I have a feeling Calvin might show up anyway." "Let him try," Jade said. "Whole squad's got your 6. I touched the legal folder beside my bed. Temporary restraining order. Criminal investigation pending. The full weight of military protection around me. Calvin thought he'd trained a soldier. Instead, he'd created a survivor who finally had an army of her own. The transformation wasn't just physical, though the bruises were fading, replaced by actual training injuries earned honestly. It was mental, strategic. I wasn't just defending anymore. I was planning my counterattack. And unlike Calvin's rage-fueled assaults, mine would be precise, legal, and devastating. "Lights out! Privates!" Someone yelled down the hall. In the darkness, my phone screen showed 0 messages from Calvin, the restraining order actually working. But I knew him. This silence was just the eye of the storm. He'd violate that order. His ego wouldn't let him accept defeat from someone he considered weak. When he did, we'd be ready. The memory hit me during rifle maintenance, the smell of CLP oil triggering something buried. Calvin's garage office, where he kept his Iron Valor Youth records in an old Broncos filing cabinet. I'd been in there countless times, sent to fetch equipment or clean up after his sessions. Now, those memories became intelligence. "Kerr needs to hear this," Staff Sergeant Briggs said when I reported my recollection that evening. Details about his cash operation could upgrade the charges from civil to criminal. The next morning, 0700, I was on a secure call with Kerr and a detective from Riverton PD. "Walk me through what you saw," Detective Morrison said. "Every parent paid cash only. Calvin would stuff it in envelopes marked with kids' initials, never full names. He had this green ledger where he tracked attendance but never payments. Said the IRS was a government scam and that cash businesses were the American way." How many kids? Usually 12 to 15 per month, 200 each. Some paid extra for advanced training, basically just more abuse with fancier names. He called wall sits isometric fortitude building and charged $50 extra per session. Kerr jumped in. "You mentioned being sent to make copies." "Yeah, liability waivers. Except they weren't real legal documents, just something he downloaded and modified. Parents signed away rights to sue for injuries during intensive character development. I kept copies in my email from when he had me scan and sent them to new parents as examples. "Forward those immediately," Morrison said. "Fraudulent liability waivers, unreported income, endangering minors, this is becoming a RICO case." That afternoon, going through my old photos for more evidence, I found something I'd forgotten. 3 videos from last December, taken secretly when Calvin's training of a 14-year-old named Marcus went too far. The kid collapsed during bear crawls in 30-degree weather, and Calvin just screamed at him to stop faking. I'd recorded it thinking maybe someday someone would believe me. "This is evidence of child abuse," Captain Reynolds said after reviewing the footage. "Multiple felonies. We're forwarding to Colorado Child Protective Services immediately." The investigation exploded outward. Parents started coming forward. Marcus's mother had photos of bruises. Another parent had recorded Calvin berating her daughter until she hyperventilated. The cash-only payments meant tax evasion. The fraudulent waivers meant fraud charges. The physical abuse meant potential prison time. "He's looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted on all counts," Kerr informed me during Thursday's legal briefing. The IRS is now involved. They found he hasn't reported any of this income we're talking about, $100,000 over 5 years. But Calvin's attempts at control hadn't stopped. Using burner phones and fake email addresses, he found ways around the restraining order. A text from an unknown number, "You destroyed my business, you lying whore." An email from Concerned Citizen 447, claiming I was mentally unstable and fabricating stories for attention. Voice messages left at 2 in the morning, breathing and muttering threats. He's violating the TRO through third-party harassment. Kerr documented each instance. Every message is another charge. Friday brought unexpected allies. 3 former Iron Valor Youth participants reached out through Kerr's office. They wanted to testify. Marcus's older brother, now 19, had documented 2 years of abuse. A girl named Trinity had recordings of Calvin's motivational speeches that included graphic threats of violence against anyone who failed to commit. Your stepfather created his own evidence trail, Detective Morrison called to update me. These kids were so traumatized they documented everything, hoping someone would eventually listen. That night, unable to sleep, I mapped out Calvin's pattern with Jade's help. She'd studied criminal psychology before enlisting. "Classic escalation pattern," she said, marking incidents on a timeline. Physical abuse disguised as training, financial exploitation of desperate parents, and when confronted, he doesn't retreat, he attacks harder. "Family Day is next week," I said. "He'll show up." "You think he's that stupid?" I knew Calvin's rage, how it overwhelmed any logic when his authority was challenged. He won't be able to stop himself. In his mind, I'm still his property. He'll violate that restraining order because he genuinely believes his rights trump any court order. Staff Sergeant Briggs agreed with my assessment. We'll coordinate with base security and local law enforcement. If he shows up, we'll be ready. The investigation had revealed Calvin as more than just my abuser. He was a predator who'd built an entire fraudulent business around traumatizing children. The man who'd called me weak had been stealing from parents and torturing their kids for profit. Sunday evening, Kerr called with final preparations for Family Day. Local PD will have undercover officers present. The restraining order is flagged high priority. Financial Crimes Unit has a warrant ready if he appears. "What about my mother?" I asked. "She's not prohibited from attending, but if she helps him violate the order, she becomes an accomplice." I thought about Elaine, probably sitting in her kitchen, still making excuses for Calvin, still choosing his violence over my safety. Part of me mourned the mother I'd never really had, but mostly, I felt ready. "Let them come," I told Kerr. "I'm done hiding." The burner phone texts started at 3:15 on Tuesday, 4 days before Family Day. "You think you've won, I know people at that base. You're not safe. Your mother cries every night because of what you've done to our family. Drop the charges or things get worse." Each message from a different number, but all Calvin's rage-soaked style. I screenshotted everything, forwarded to Kerr, and tried to focus on morning PT. But my hands shook during push-ups, not from exertion but from adrenaline. He was spiraling, getting desperate. Wednesday brought escalation. An email to my Army Enterprise account from Truth About Sierra Gmail .com sent to my entire chain of command, claiming I was a pathological liar seeking attention through false abuse claims. It included photos from my social media, selectively chosen ones where I was smiling at family gatherings. Calvin's arm around my shoulders. "Does this look like an abused person?" The email asked. Colonel Patterson personally visited our training battalion. Private Whitaker. That email has been traced to an IP address in Riverton. It's being added to the criminal harassment file. Every leader in your chain of command supports you. But Calvin wasn't done. Thursday. My mother called the base family support center. "She's having a mental breakdown," Elaine told the counselor, who later briefed me on the conversation. "She's always been unstable, making up stories. Her stepfather just wants to apologize at Family Day. He's already driving here left this morning. Said he won't let her lies destroy our family." The counselor, a seasoned professional named Dr. Winters, saw through it immediately. "Ma'am, Are you aware there's an active restraining order your husband cannot come within 500 feet of this installation, or your daughter? Those papers are based on lies he never— Ma'am, I'm required to report this threat to base security. If your husband appears here, he will be arrested. Staff Sergeant Briggs pulled me from combatives training after the call. He's driving here, left Riverton approximately 0600. It's a 5-hour drive. We're implementing the response plan now. She walked me through the tactical preparation like a combat briefing. Base security had his vehicle description and plates. Carbon County Sheriff's Department had units on standby. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit had agents ready with arrest warrants for the tax evasion and fraud charges. Even the training battalion had adjusted the Family Day layout, moving events away from parking areas to create more controlled access points. You'll be in the demonstration area with your squad, Briggs explained, marking positions on a base map. Security will have eyes on all entry points. The second he's spotted, we move. That night, I barely slept. Jade stayed up with me, teaching me breathing exercises she'd learned from her therapist. He's going to come, I said at 2 a.m. He can't help himself. Good, she said. Let him walk into his own trap. Friday afternoon, the pressure intensified. Unknown numbers called the base operator claiming welfare checks on me. Someone reported me as suicidal to the local police, requiring a response team to verify I was safe. Calvin was trying to create chaos, make me look unstable before his arrival. Classic abuser handbook, Dr. Winters explained during an emergency counseling session. Discredit the victim, create confusion, then appear as the reasonable party trying to help. Kerr called with a final update. The financial investigation uncovered more. He's been claiming Iron Valor Youth as a charity on grant applications. That's federal wire fraud. U.S. Marshals are now involved. How many charges total? 43 and climbing. Tax evasion, wire fraud, child endangerment, criminal harassment, violation of protective order. Your stepfather built his own prison, brick by brick. Saturday morning, 05:30. Family Day. I dressed in my Class B uniform with hands that didn't shake anymore. The bruises had faded to yellow shadows. My ribs had healed, but more than physical healing. I felt the steel Calvin claimed he was building, except it came from surviving him, not from his abuse. Today's the day, Jade said, adjusting my collar. You ready? He trained me my whole life for confrontation, I said, just not the way he intended. We marched to the demonstration field where families were already gathering. I spotted 3 undercover officers immediately. They were good, but not military good at blending in. Security had positioned themselves at choke points. Even some of the visiting families were actually additional law enforcement. At 0900, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I'm here. Time to end this lie. I showed it to Briggs, who immediately relayed to security. He's on base or approaching. All units stand by. Shh! At 0915, during our drill demonstration, I saw Elaine near the parking area, standing by Calvin's black F-150. She was wringing her hands, looking around nervously. At 0923, Calvin stepped out of his truck, wearing his old coaching jacket like armor. Even from 200 yards away, I could see his face red, twisted with rage he could no longer contain. Briggs spoke into her radio. Target acquired, grid reference Bravo 7, moving toward restricted area. The trap was set. The prey was walking in. And for the first time in my life, Calvin Rusk had no idea he was the weak one. The morning sun caught the brass on Staff Sergeant Briggs's uniform as she stepped away from our formation, phone already in hand. The families gathering for demonstrations didn't notice the subtle shift in security positions, the way uniformed personnel created a corridor leading from the parking area. Calvin was walking into a military precision operation. Mr. Rusk! Briggs's voice carried across the field through her phone on speaker, loud enough for nearby families to hear. This is Staff Sergeant Briggs. Where are you currently located? His voice boomed through the speaker, arrogant and unaware. I'm right at your damn gate, about to walk through. going to have a conversation with my lying stepdaughter whether you like it or not. Sir, are you aware there's an active restraining order prohibiting you from entering this installation? That piece of paper based on lies from a weak little girl who can't handle discipline? I'm her family. I have rights. Captain Reynolds, standing beside Briggs with a tablet recording everything, nodded to the security team. 2 Carbon County Sheriff's deputies moved toward the entrance, staying just out of Calvin's sightline. Mr. Rusk, for clarity, you're stating your intention to violate a court-ordered protection order. I'm stating I'm going to see Sierra and set things straight. That girl destroyed my business with her lies. $40,000 in lost revenue because she couldn't keep her mouth shut about training methods that made her who she is. Briggs made eye contact with me across the field. Stay in position, her look said. Let him hang himself. The Iron Valor Youth Program. Briggs continued. The one operating without licenses or insurance. It was character building. These soft kids today need, Sir, multiple parents have filed complaints. The IRS has questions about unreported income. Are you familiar with the term wire fraud? The speaker crackled with Calvin's heavy breathing. Behind him, barely visible from our position, 2 FBI agents in civilian clothes emerged from an unmarked van. You threatening me, Sergeant. I'm informing you of your situation. Mr. Rusk, turn around and leave now, or face arrest for violating a protective order. This is your only warning. Fuck your warning. The crowd of families had noticed the drama now, creating a loose circle of spectators. Calvin pushed through the main gate, past the clearly posted signs reading, Restricted Area Authorized Personnel Only. Elaine trailed behind him, her face pale. He made it exactly 43 steps onto federal property. Calvin Rusk. The sheriff's deputy's voice rang out. Stop where you are. Hands visible. Calvin spun around, his coaching jacket flaring. This is family business. Sir, you're under arrest for violation of a protective order and criminal trespass on federal property. That's when Calvin saw the trap deputies approaching from the front. FBI agents from behind. Base security flanking. His face went from red to purple. He pointed at me across the field. She's lying. Ask anyone I made her strong without me. She's nothing but a weak... Sir, turn around. Hands behind your back. You don't understand. Check her phone. Check her medical records from before. She's always been clumsy. Always... Briggs held up her tablet, showing something to Calvin as the officers approached. Mr. Rusk, I have here bank records showing cash deposits totaling $38,000 over 2 years, none reported to the IRS. Care to explain? His face drained of color. How did you... Your stepdaughter kept excellent records, photographs of your cash ledger, videos of your training sessions with minors, copies of fraudulent liability waivers. Briggs's voice carried clear and professional. You documented your own crimes. Mr. Rusk. The first deputy reached Calvin, hand on his cuffs. Turn around, sir. Elaine, Calvin barked at my mother. Tell them she's lying. My mother stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Cal, please, just tell them. Mr. Rusk, final warning. Comply or we'll add resisting arrest to your charges. The entire base seemed to hold its breath. My squad stood at attention beside me, but I could feel their solidarity, their readiness to move if needed. This was my army now. Calvin made his choice. He jerked away from the deputy, took 2 aggressive steps toward my formation. Sierra, you ungrateful. The takedown was textbook beautiful. 3 officers moved as one. Calvin hit the ground hard, his coaching jacket riding up as they cuffed him. The click of the handcuffs echoed across the silent field. Calvin Rusk, you're under arrest for violation of a protective order, criminal trespass, tax evasion, wire fraud, and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent. As they hauled him to his feet, grass stains on his jeans, Calvin's eyes found mine across the field. For years, that stare had terrified me. Now I saw what it really was, a weak man's rage at losing control. Briggs appeared at my shoulder. Private Whitaker, eyes front. Maintain bearing." I snapped to attention, staring straight ahead as they led Calvin past our formation toward the sheriff's vehicle. The crowd parted silently. Someone started slow clapping, then another, then dozens of families applauding as Calvin was placed in the back of the patrol car. The door slammed with beautiful finality. The handcuffs caught the morning light as they clicked around Calvin's wrists. The sound metal on metal, final and absolute, carried across the demonstration field where 200 people stood frozen, watching. My stepfather, the man who'd spent years breaking me down in the name of building me up, was on his knees in the grass, his coaching jacket twisted up around his shoulders. "Get up!" the deputy ordered, hauling Calvin to his feet. Grass stains marked his jeans. His face had gone from purple rage to something else, disbelief. Maybe. The recognition that his world of control had just ended. The FBI agent stepped forward with a tablet. "Mr. Rusk, we're also serving you with federal warrants for tax evasion and wire fraud related to your Iron Valor youth program. You're looking at 15 to 20 years. Calvin's eyes found me across the field, even from 50 yards away. I could see him trying to form words, trying to find the combination of threats or manipulation that would restore his power. His mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. "Sierra," Elaine's voice cracked as she stumbled toward our formation. "Please, honey, tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them—" "Ma'am, stop there." Staff Sergeant Briggs intercepted her with professional calm. "Your daughter is in formation." "But she needs to fix this." Calvin just gets passionate about. "Ma'am, your husband just confessed to assault, threatened a service member, and violated a protective order on federal property. There's nothing to fix." The sheriff's vehicle sat 20 feet from our formation, back door open like a mouth waiting to swallow Calvin whole. They marched him past us, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same one that used to make me flinch when I heard his footsteps in the hall. As they positioned him at the car, Calvin made one last attempt. "You're weak. Sierra always were, always will be without me. You're Private Whitaker." Briggs's voice cut through his rant, steady and clear. "Would you like to respond?" The entire base seemed to pause. My squad stood rigid beside me, but I felt their energy, their support. Jade's slight shift toward me, Rodriguez's barely perceptible nod. My army. I took one step forward, maintaining perfect military bearing. My voice came out steady, carrying across the silent field. "I'm not weak. You just picked the wrong target." Nothing more needed to be said. No long speech about survival or justice. Just the truth, delivered with the bearing of a soldier who'd earned her strength through surviving, not through someone else's abuse. The deputy placed his hand on Calvin's head, guiding him into the vehicle. The door slammed with a finality that seemed to echo off the mountains surrounding Camp Silver Butte. Through the rear window, I watched Calvin's silhouette, his head turning, still trying to stare at me, still trying to impose his will through glass and distance. The car pulled away, followed by the FBI sedan and another sheriff's unit. Elaine stood alone in the grass, looking lost, before walking slowly back to Calvin's truck, which would probably be seized as evidence of his financial crimes. "Formation, attention." Briggs commanded. We snapped to, unified and precise. "Private Whitaker." "Yes." "Staff Sergeant." "Outstanding bearing under pressure. That's what real strength looks like." She addressed the entire formation, loud enough for the watching families to hear. "This is what we train for, not just combat, but the courage to stand against any enemy, foreign or domestic. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight to protect ourselves." The crowd erupted in applause. Parents, siblings, fellow soldiers all clapping for something that had nothing to do with drill movements or combat demonstrations. They were applauding survival, justice, the end of fear. Later, as families mingled with soldiers over barbecue and soft drinks, Jade found me sitting alone behind the mess hall, finally allowing myself to breathe. "You good?" she asked, sitting beside me. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. For the first time in my life, actually good. My phone buzzed with a message from Alyssa Kerr. Federal prosecutor says with the evidence you provided, conviction is almost certain. You did this. Sierra, you won. I looked at my hands, steady now, no longer shaking. The bruises had faded to nothing. The uniform I wore belonged to me, earned through my own determination, not Calvin's twisted version of training. Staff Sergeant Briggs appeared around the corner. Whitaker, Morales, formation in 5 for final demonstrations. We stood, brushing off our uniforms. As we walked back toward the field, Briggs fell into step beside us. You know what the difference is between strength and abuse. Whitaker, Staff Sergeant. Strength builds others up. Abuse tears them down. You survived the second and chose the first. That's why you're going to make an outstanding soldier. The sun climbed higher over Camp Silver Butte as we rejoined our unit. Somewhere, Calvin was being processed into county detention. Somewhere, my mother was deciding whether to face the truth or continue living in denial. But here, in this moment, I stood in formation with my chosen family, my real army, finally free. The handcuffs had clicked closed on Calvin Rusk at 09:43 a.m. On a Saturday morning in Wyoming, my new life had begun at the exact same moment. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if this story resonated with you, and please share your thoughts. Your support means everything, and your own stories of strength matter too.